You know exactly who I'm talking about. Every friend group has one. That person who walks into a room and immediately the energy shifts. Everyone relaxes. Everyone laughs. They've got perfect timing. They can turn the most awkward silence into the funniest moment of the night. They're the one everyone calls when they need cheering up. The one who always knows what to say. The one who makes everything lighter, easier, more survivable. And nobody ever asks them how they're doing. Not really. Sure, people say, "How are you?" But the funny friend has already turned it into a joke before the question even lands. Oh, living the dream, if the dream involves student loans and an existential crisis. Everyone laughs, conversation moves on, and nobody notices that they never actually answered. If you know this person, or if you are this person, stay with me, because the psychology behind the funniest person in your life is one of the most heartbreaking things I've ever researched. Here's what nobody tells you about humor. It's not just entertainment, it's architecture. Your brain builds it for a reason, and for a lot of funny people, that reason has nothing to do with wanting attention. It has everything to do with survival. Let me paint you a picture. You're 7 years old. Something is happening at home. Maybe your parents are fighting. Maybe someone's drinking. Maybe the emotional weather in your house changes without warning. And you're just a kid. You can't fix it. You can't leave. You can't even name what you're feeling. But one day, completely by accident, you say something and someone laughs. And for 1 second, just one, the tension breaks. The scary adult in the room softens. The chaos pauses. And your brain, your brilliant, desperate 7-year-old brain, files that away. Humor equals safety. Not funny haha. Humor equals this is how I survive. Humor equals this is how I control unpredictable environments. Humor equals this is how I make scary people less scary. And you've been running that program ever since. Psychologists call this a coping mechanism, but honestly, that term feels too clinical for what's actually happening. What's actually happening is that a child figured out that if they could make the room laugh, they could make the room safe. And that child grew up and became the funniest person you know. But here's where it gets complicated. The thing about using humor as armor is that it works too well, like genuinely too well. People see you laughing and assume you're fine. People see you making jokes and assume nothing's wrong. You've built such a convincing performance that everyone, including you sometimes, forgets it is a performance. There's a concept in psychology called the mask model of humor. Researcher William Hamps found that people who score highest in humor production, making others laugh, often score highest in loneliness and depression at the same time. Read that again. The funniest people in the room are often the loneliest people in the room, and nobody notices because the mask is that good. Think about it. How many comedians have we lost? Robin Williams, Anthony Bourdain, who technically wasn't a comedian, but had that same energy, that same deflection through charm. The public reaction is always the same, but they seemed so happy. Yeah, that's the whole point. They seemed happy because they were exceptionally skilled at making you feel good, which meant nobody thought to check if they felt good. And here's what makes this even more painful. Funny people are often the most emotionally intelligent people you'll ever meet. They have to be. Humor requires reading a room, understanding timing, knowing what someone needs to hear, sensing tension before it explodes. You can't be funny without being deeply observant. So they see everything, they feel everything, they understand everything. They just can't say any of it directly, because somewhere along the way, vulnerability got replaced with a punchline. Now they don't know how to ask for help without making it a joke. They don't know how to say, "I'm struggling," without adding, "but anyway, enough about me." They don't know how to sit in their own pain because their entire nervous system is screaming, "Make it funny, make it lighter, make everyone comfortable. That's your job." Wild, right? But wait, there's another layer nobody talks about. The funny friend isn't just deflecting their own pain, they're absorbing everyone else's. Think about your friend group. Who does everyone go to when they're having a bad day? The funny one. Who does everyone text at 2 a.m. when they can't sleep? The funny one. Who holds the group together during conflict? The funny one. They became the emotional infrastructure of every relationship they're in, not because anyone asked them to, but because their childhood taught them that their value comes from making others feel better. Psychologists call this the caretaker role in family systems theory. Often, the child who becomes the family comedian is also the child who became responsible for everyone else's emotional state before they were old enough to manage their own. So they grew up and kept doing it. They're the friend who shows up for everyone but never asks anyone to show up for them. The friend who checks in on you but panics when you check in on them. The friend who can hold space for your darkest moments but has never once let you hold space for theirs. And if you ask them about it, they'll make a joke, because that's what the program does. Here's something that might mess with you a little bit. Funny people often have a complicated relationship with silence, not external silence, internal silence. When they're alone, when there's nobody to perform for, when the audience is gone, and it's just them and their thoughts, that's when it gets loud. Because humor is noise, right? It fills space, it covers things, it keeps the room moving. And when the room is empty and there's nothing to fill, all the stuff they've been covering surfaces. The anxiety they joked about is real. The loneliness they turned into a bit is real. The sadness they deflected with perfect timing has been sitting there the whole time, waiting for the laughter to stop. This is why so many funny people struggle with sleep, with being alone, with slowing down. Because stillness means feeling, and feeling without an audience means feeling without protection. And that's terrifying for someone whose entire identity was built around making sure nobody ever sees them struggle. But here's where I want to flip this, because I don't want you walking away thinking the funny friend is broken. They're not. The same sensitivity that made them hyper-aware of danger as a kid is the same sensitivity that makes them extraordinary at connecting with people. The same pattern recognition that helped them predict emotional explosions is the same pattern recognition that gives them perfect comedic timing. The same need to make others feel safe is the same quality that makes them the most loyal, compassionate friend you'll ever have. Research on post-traumatic growth shows that people who develop humor in response to difficult experiences often show higher resilience, deeper empathy, and stronger relationships than people who never went through those experiences at all. Their pain became their superpower. That's not a cliche, that's neuroscience. Their brain literally rewired itself to transform suffering into connection, and that's extraordinary. But, and this is the important part, it only stays a superpower if they learn to take the mask off sometimes. Not forever, not with everyone, but with someone. One person, one safe space, where they don't have to be funny, where they can just be tired or sad or confused without turning it into material. Where someone can ask, "How are you really doing?" and they can answer honestly, even if the answer isn't entertaining. Because the funny friend has spent their entire life making sure everyone else is okay. And at some point, someone needs to make sure they're okay too. So here's what I want you to do. If you recognized someone in this video, if a face popped into your head while I was talking, check on them. Not with a meme, not with a joke, not with "you're so funny, I love you," but with something real. Something like, "Hey, I know you're always the one making everyone feel better, but I want you to know you don't have to do that with me." And then just wait. They might laugh it off the first time. That's the program running. But if you keep showing up, if you keep proving that your love isn't conditional on their performance, something will shift. They'll start to believe they're not just loved for what they give, they're loved for who they are underneath the laughter. And that might be the first time anyone has ever told them that. The funny friend isn't performing because they love the spotlight. They're performing because a long time ago, the spotlight was the only thing that kept them safe. And maybe it's time someone told them they don't need to earn safety anymore. They already deserve it, just by being here. If this hit home for you, please subscribe. I would genuinely appreciate your support.